Hello everyone, welcome back to Building Tamriel, a series where I'm attempting to paint a bunch of buildings and a bunch of Call to Arms miniatures, and we're going to have one huge Elder Scrolls diorama, and maybe even play the game someday. So on my last video, we had this issue. The Courier looks like he had the gun mod to the head. It's pretty bad. We are not using gun mods, so we need to fix this. So first of all, the Courier is from the Call to Arms Adventurer Wanderers. You get, I forget his name, you get some mage guy. You get some orc. I really do play the game, I really do. Of course, the Dragonborn, that's the main reason that I wanted this set. Then, you get Delphine. Not a favorite, but I mean kinda, but oh, that price. Alright, thankfully though, Amazon exists so we can get it a little cheaper. And why is Delphine so pissed off? Why is she so mad? Anyway, so here's what the Courier looks like in the game. Now, knowing Elder Scrolls players, I did check, and yes, he can get hotter with mods. Here's what we're starting out with. Here's what I'm attempting to fix. As you can see, he has a gaping hole in his head. I don't know how it works. I've seen those holes in very small spots on these, but nothing like right on the face. So we're going to start painting him. If my hand can actually stay still for the camera to focus, there you go. That's how he looks after Prime. It filled it in a little bit, but not as much as I'd like. Once again, just showing you the box. That's the goal. We'll see if we get there. Alright, so first of all, we're just going to use some hardened leather, as well as some green. Now these three I'm gonna mix. Once again, we're using Army Painter Speed Paint. I love these. Now, when I mix these, I'm only giving it like maybe 1 drop from each, because with this stuff, a little bit goes a very long way. Alright, so this is sped up a little bit. The speed for the paint here goes between anywhere from like 2 to 3 times. You'll notice that it does kind of, it's fairly fluid, but it's not just running off the figure. It kind of fills into the deeper spots to give it a bit of some shading. That's what I really love about speed paint. So these 3 colors mixed well to give the Courier just kind of that lighter brown that I wanted, because I didn't want to just do a basic brown, because we already have the signpost in there. So we got the bottom, so now we're going to get the top. Now the Courier is tricky because there's just the tiniest bit of, yeah, you can see me checking it right there. There's just the tiniest bit of white that's supposed to poke through at the edges of his tunic in some places. Okay, editing note here. I just want to apologize for how chipped and nasty my nails look. I did not realize they were that bad until I edited all this. I am using that magnifying glass with the light that you probably saw in my last video. Nice and cheap from Walmart. You can probably find one very similar, if not the same, cheaper online somewhere. So the Courier is just, it is one of the figures I was excited to see in the set. It's just very nice for setting up different scenes. I like to have some townsfolk. As much as I love all the characters that we're getting, oh crap, it's Sven time. Okay, so just a little progress on Sven. Once again, I made that brown, I mixed it just how I wanted it. It was the same that Sven would need, so I had to take a little detour. Alright, now the thing about army paints, once again, like, they're good, but it gets pricey, so when you've got that paint made, you use that paint. Alright, let's see what I'm doing next here. Satchel Brown. I record these somewhat, it's not my first time rewatching this, but I try to get a more genuine reaction, so I don't super script these. Yeah, just look right now, see all that detail on the boots? It has several spots, and I could not decide if I wanted to do them all in one color or some different colors. I ultimately decided to just try one shade of brown and just see how much the natural shading of the speed paint would do to make the different parts stand out. So that's what this is. It's a little test. If you're wondering what that thing on the very base of the bottom of the base for the figure is, sometimes just to kind of see how my colors will turn out on the white, I do put just a dab on the bottom. Usually it comes off right away. On this one, it did not. Alright, so there you can see just how that shading is kind of taking effect, and I liked it. You could still see kind of the more wrapped areas, and of course that's going to become a bit more distinct as it dries, so I just let it go. So we moved on to the next one. Now I was saying I like the Courier because as many great kind of action poses as we get, lots of just weapons, very armed people, I do enjoy dioramas, so for me this is a lot more than just like a war game. This is very much more art in a way, more of a diorama piece. So I very much appreciate anything that just looks like maybe a more common person that could be running about the town. Alright, this might be, let's see, God, I'm showing off both of those. Oh yes, I'm mixing these. I already had the drop of green right there, so we're just doing one other drop. Again, it doesn't take much to go a lot with these paints. This one is actually in real speed, just because it's such a small spot, just this tiny bit of pant leg. So I really, sometimes I do test it, just on the side there too, but this is in real time, just it's such a small thing. So there you can see, you know, this is what painting the knees are actually like. I was pretty happy with this. I did achieve a slightly lighter shade of brown. The one thing I don't like is that we're just getting into a lot of shades of brown with this, even if the coat could be arguably a light yellow, but still, I think I'm getting enough separation in there. So today's question for the comment section: which Call to Arms figure has either had the most issues straight out of the box for you, or was just the toughest to paint? What I'm really hoping for is that we get some more townsfolk in some future expansions, because I have yet to see these actually sold in one of my local game stores. I even talked to one person. He didn't even know that there was a game. The Fallout one has been picking up a bit though, so we can only hope that the Elder Scrolls one kind of picks up, but for me at least, because it's not always easy to find people to play with, I would really appreciate it if they could just give us some decent townsfolk, just something to help us create some scenes, because even then, again, for me, much of this is just the joy of just painting them. Now, acrylic gesso. So this is something it's something I've used on buildings before in some other paint projects. Now, this is the cover, just some, once you shake it, just some goop dries in there. So that's all I need. That's all you need, just a tiny little bit. This stuff is pretty thick. Now, what it is it's basically, it's an acrylic primer. So for me, I have pets. So I don't even like having to wear a mask all the time when I paint. I just like to do this as safe as possible. So I love this stuff. Instead of using kind of the harder paints, we're just going to mix in just a little bit with this gesso. I've used it on some Gunpla before for some very good results. And now we're using it here. Now, why I like this is because sometimes when you put a solid paint on something that's already been primed, it's very tough to apply a paint over that. Sometimes with the speed paints, it will react in such a way that the primer paint will come off if you try to put something on top of it too soon. But with this gesso being a bit of a second primer, we're going to get a very different result. So here's a light gray that we're putting on. We mixed in just the tiniest bit of Gravelord gray. Now I'm kind of smudging this. I don't want it to fill in everything. I just want to get enough gray on top. because we're gonna put some actual speed paint on later, and then you're gonna see just kind of the magic happen. I sound like a salesperson. Okay, so now we're using this. This is actually my first time using this paint. Again, I really love speed paints. That was a thumbs up, but I had to zoom in so you could see it more, so it just looked like a fist. I do not wish ill will towards any of you. That's not what that is. All right. So we're gonna try it on this kind of post. Again, I wanted to try a different brown because I just feel like I end up using a lot of browns in these, and this is one that I want to use on some buildings later. Just more of a tan. A nice tan that I can get without wasting some speed paints and mixing. Now my plan for this is to put this on as a base and then apply a bit of a wash later, because this does have some nice, the sculpt itself from Modifius, if I'm saying that right, it does have some nice details that could get filled in. Let's see, am I going to show you? Yeah, so this is how we are so far. There you can kind of see how the sign is, you can kind of see those details in there. Again, this plain paint, it's a nice shade, but it is not, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have two choices here for the skin color. Now this is very important. So this is the Peachy Flesh speed paint. That's Peachy Flesh. Now this one is Crusader Skin. This is the one that I've used on the Dragonborn. Now this one, it's mildly darker, but the main thing is look at the spots where it kind of highlights where the muscle is. In some areas it goes a bit darker than I'd like, in others it's very nice. But the thing is, with the Courier having that hole in his head, I really don't want that hole highlighted, so we're going to go with the Peachy Flesh, which comes in a lot flatter. So we're going to be very careful because I really, really don't want it to goop up in that hole. The primer filled it in a little bit, but that's just a thin coat. It's still a hole in his head. Maybe some of you in your game have put a hole in your Courier's head. Is the Courier essential? I don't do the murder hobo build, as some people call it, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments what happens if you take out the Courier. Is he essential? Does he revive? Let me know. So this guy will be a lot of fun. If I do, when I'm done actually painting everything, if I do actually learn the rules of the game, I played a little bit, just a little bit of Wasteland Warfare. I don't know, we'll see. But if I do play the game, this will be a very nice character that we can kind of have run in if anyone in our party dies. Because one thing that I have appreciated from what I have been reading, because I do have the core rule book, I do have the expansion, the PDF online, so that I can figure out the settlement system. Because what I really like about that is that it allows a continuing story. Alright, so there's how we're kind of looking. We're getting it filled in a bit. Whoa, I think I hit my camera there. Alright, there we go, there's the steadier shot for you. As you can see, that hole is just barely visible still. Kind of looks like maybe he got a scar over his eyebrow, but it's still there. Very hidden, but still there. Oh, I don't like that one smudge on the side of the hat. That's something that I would probably redo if I could, but okay. Here's that gesso trick I was showing you. So now that our gesso has dried, and I also do this just because the Gravelord Gray, it's, for some reason, it's just a little weaker than the other speed paints. It's more runny and it doesn't fill in as well. And I also want to get a bit of some grime, you know, because I figure this would be a mix of dirt and cobblestone, maybe have a bit of moss mixed in, but much more a mix than one solid color. So watch what happens when we put Pallid Bone, probably my favorite of all the speed paint shades. Just, I don't know what it is, but this shade just looks good everywhere. So we're just going to put that onto our gesso mix of white acrylic gesso and speed paint Gravelord Gray. And look at that nice kind of browny green right in their mix, but we're leaving just a pinch of the gray still visible. And you can do this on top of more than just the gray. When we finally finish up the Imperial base, the keep in town, that's something that I have been using on the walls, and you'll get to see how I do that with some other paint bases, using the pallid bone again on top. Alright, now we're just kind of going around and just dabbing a bit more with that pallid bone. It's barely visible. I did put a bit on what was going to be white originally, just to show some wear, some dust on the Courier. I originally was planning to leave it, but it looked far too pristine being left alone, so I'm just going to dab it. Not a complete cover, but enough just to make it appear like it won't look like I just forgot to paint it. Let's put it that way. I went a bit heavier on the scroll though, just so that it's clearly paper. So you can kind of tell it's more of an object. It has some depth to it. There we go. See, now it's looking a little better. Alright, so now we just have the wash to go on the sign and that dirt base. Right, so let's see. Yep, I'm talking about that sign. So here we just have some water. We're just going to drop some black into it to make a wash. Now, it's kind of working. This is not my best wash. I still have a lot to learn on washes. Perhaps I should have let it dry more. I'm not sure. If you're an expert on washes, let me know what to do next time in the comments. As I just figure out all these paints. Now right here, the nice thing though about washes that I have noticed, or any of these speed paints, if you get too much, just put a dry brush to it and just watch. It'll soak that right up. Boom, mistake gone. Alright, so now we got that applied. What am I even doing here? Where am I going? Oh yes. Okay, so we do have some stitches on the Courier. So we're using that Gravelord Gray. This stuff works a lot better when it's on top of something else. And we want these to just poke out just a little bit. So they're already poking up. So what you can do with this is just very, very lightly touch where it is. Because you don't want it to mix in with the bottom. But with this stuff, the moment it touches, it's gonna, see, there we go, soaking it up again. The moment it touches, it's gonna spread on its own. This is a technique that I'm probably gonna talk more about when we get around to painting on Kano and we see how the Thalmor uniform turns out. I have mostly painted the Thalmor patrol set, I believe it was. And the uniforms are definitely tricky, but it's kind of a lot of what we're doing here with the Courier. It's very fine work, but it is slightly elevated off the figure. So the trick is to really make sure that your paint will spread just a little bit, but then make sure that it's a very light touch, only getting the top. Now we're just going to dab a little bit of metal on that little clasp. And here we are when we're done. I did give the Courier just a little bit of hair with a darker shade of that skin on top. So there he is. That is the final product. Again, the thing that I would probably want to fix is that one darker spot on the side of his hat, and then also just getting the wash a bit better. But otherwise, I'm pretty satisfied with it. Just kind of blends across where that hole was, looking like he has a nice head of hair. And there he is, all set to help out in the village. All set to find you and tell you if the Dark Brotherhood's after you or if you have some inheritance. So thank you for joining me in this one, and we'll see what we paint in the next one. It's been a little cold here, but I think I'm going to be able to do some larger spray painting soon. So just thank you so much for watching and joining me in this. I thought the video had ended by now. Goodbye.